Raider Nation, the atmosphere in Las Vegas is boiling over. There is a rookie on offense breaking records, even while the offensive line leaves him hanging. There is a monster on defense caught in a heavy situation this offseason. At the draft, the number 1 overall pick is more coveted than ever, and there is far more at stake than you might think. There is also a smart idea on the table to bring another weapon to the offense. Stay locked in, because the last one hits right at the people who run the building. But before we start, real quick here, subscribe to the channel and drop a comment telling us what you are most excited about this offseason. Now let us get to the first one. There are moments when the Raiders offense looks like it is running with the parking brake on. Then you take another look and remember that Ashton Jeanty still made real noise anyway. The kid came in to rescue a rushing attack that had been struggling for a long time. And even with the offensive line getting beaten almost every week, he delivered production that earns respect. He finished the year with 1,321 total yards from scrimmage. That is a rookie franchise record. It passed what Josh Jacobs once set, and he barely missed reaching 1,000 rushing yards. He finished 25 yards short. 25 yards, man, on a team that, let us be honest, did not open many lanes for him. There were games where I watched thinking, come on, just open one hole. Nothing. The opposing defense was already in his face. And still he lowered his shoulder and pulled out 3 or 4 yards. It sounds small, but that is what keeps a drive alive. That is what stops the offense from going 3 and out over and over. That is the point. When the line does not push, the running back has to become a magician. He has to guess holes that are not really there. He has to cut through chaos. And Jeanty showed he has both legs and instincts. He does not disappear from games. He fights for yards that were never there to begin with. That matters a lot, especially for a fan base in silver and black that is tired of watching the offense stall. Then a ranking from Maurice Jones-Drew came out on NFL.com. He placed Jeanty as the 23rd best running back in the league this season. I know 23rd does not sound like a celebration, but look at the full picture. He is a rookie. He played in a broken offense. There was a coordinator change in the middle of the season. Chip Kelly was let go at the end of November. That affects play calling, rhythm, and confidence. To me, that ranking can be read 2 ways. One is, see, the offense still has a long way to go. The other is, imagine when they fix the line and find a quarterback who does not let the defense live in the backfield. I lean toward the second. Because the talent is there. General Manager John Spytek said Jeanty was exemplary, always available, always working, and now it is on the team to put more good players around him. This is the kind of context you only get from someone who lives and breathes Raiders football. It is not about worshiping a ranking. It is about understanding the situation. The Raiders finished with the worst rushing average in the NFL again, and still Jeanty carried real weight. That is not nothing. That is a foundation you can build on. Now, I want to hear what you see in him. Do you think he is already a finished star, or does he still need a system that helps him? Let me know in the comments, because this debate splits the stands. And stay locked in. Watch until the end, because the last one is heavy. The next story is about a defensive player who could become the biggest topic of the entire offseason. There are things you cannot hide inside a locker room. When a leader feels pushed aside, the mood changes immediately. That is where the name-making fans' uneasy comes in, Max Crosby. The story is that the team decided to shut him down for the final 2 games of the 2025 season. And from what has leaked out, that decision damaged the relationship. This was not just rest. For a player who lives on the edge and pulls everyone with him, it feels like a crossed signal. And you know how that goes. If a player feels the shield is not backing him, the situation gets tense fast. Crosby is under contract through 2029. He signed that 3-year extension worth $106.5 million United States dollars. So this is not a simple case of a contract ending and moving on. But a long contract does not control emotions. Diana Rossini from The Athletic reported that the Raiders would be open to listening to trade talks. That is if this fracture does not heal before next year. Speaking very plainly here, I hate imagining this team without him. He is the face of the defense. He is the kind of player who plays with controlled anger. He bothers quarterbacks all game long. He keeps opposing offensive lines awake at night. But if this tension turns into an open wound, the team cannot just pretend everything is fine and hope for a miracle. That is where the other side of the argument comes in. If you trade an edge rusher of this caliber, you better get a massive return. The league has seen a blockbuster recently. Micah Parsons was moved to the Packers. Dallas received Kenny Clark and 2 future first-round picks. Those picks were in 2026 and 2027. Crosby is different for a few reasons. He is 29 years old. Parsons was younger when he was traded. Age matters in this conversation. On the flip side, any team trading for Crosby gets a player under contract for 4 more seasons. That brings security. It is not a one-year rental. That is why the package could still be strong. A solid starter plus serious draft capital to start rebuilding properly. But there is one detail that complicates everything. He had meniscus surgery at the end of the season. That gives the market an excuse to try to push the price down. Teams will call saying, well, he is injured, but nobody is naive. If he is healthy, he remains one of the few players who can change a game by himself. I keep picturing the meeting room, Tom Brady and John Spytek sitting there. They are trying to align their message and pull him back into the vision. If they succeed, great. If they do not, this offseason turns into an earthquake. And stay with me, because the next story affects the entire future of the team. There is a powerful name coming in the draft, and the Raiders are holding all the leverage. The truth is the Raiders are standing at a rare crossroads. They do not get the first overall pick very often. That alone changes the mood of the fan base instantly. It brings that feeling of now things can finally change, even after a brutal season, and that is where the conversation everyone is having begins. The most mentioned name for that pick is quarterback Fernando Mendoza, but I am not going to pretend this is easy. Taking a quarterback at the top is a massive gamble. You hit and you change the franchise. You miss and you lose years. What does Mendoza bring right away? First, arm talent and the courage to attack tight windows. He does not look like a quarterback who freezes on his first read and gives up. He tries. He takes chances. That matters in today's NFL. The other thing is command. When the game tightens up, he does not disappear. He keeps the rhythm and pulls the team with him. But there is one sentence I keep repeating to myself. A rookie does not fix everything alone. The roster still has holes. The offensive line needs help. The offense needs more weapons. And the coaching staff will be new again. We have seen this movie before. Changing philosophies every year creates chaos. Even so, the entire league understands why this pick brings hope. There was a piece from Pro Football Focus by Thomas Valentine. It said the biggest reason for optimism in Las Vegas is simply owning the number 1 pick. And that makes sense. It reignites a plan. It gives direction. But here is the catch. Everything depends on who is leading the sideline. If the new head coach looks at Mendoza and says, this is my guy, then a real identity starts to form. If the coach comes in with a different vision, trade conversations could happen. And the price would have to be outrageous. You only pass on a quarterback like this if you receive a mountain of picks and ready-made players. I see 2 groups among the fans. One wants Mendoza immediately, no questions asked. The other is afraid of repeating quarterback trauma. I understand both sides. Honestly, I am in the middle. I want a quarterback who can lead the offense for years, but I also want protection and structure so he does not become a moving target. There is one more thing that excites me. Mendoza has already been part of a major turnaround in college. He knows what it is like to lift a program. That guarantees nothing in the NFL, but it shows toughness. Now I throw it to you. If the Raiders draft Mendoza, is it the start of a new era, or is it too early to throw him into that fire? Talk to me in the comments, because this debate is heating up. And stay with me through the transition, because the next story is that quiet draft idea that could make the offense far more dangerous. The kind of move not enough people are talking about. Let me tell you something. Not enough people are really focusing on. The danger for the Raiders in this draft is not only at the very top, it is in that moment when you blink and, in the second round, you can find the perfect partner for the new offense. The need is obvious. This team needs talent everywhere, but especially on offense. Offensive line, receivers, identity. Without that, every plan turns to sand, and this team cannot live on almost anymore. An idea coming from Pro Football Focus laid it out clearly. They believe Las Vegas will use the number 1 pick on a quarterback. That brings Fernando Mendoza into the picture again. But the real twist comes after that. With the 36th overall pick, the suggestion is to add a wide receiver who already has chemistry with him, Elijah Sarrett. When I read that, I thought, now we are talking. Rookie quarterbacks struggle when they do not have a reliable target. And struggling in Las Vegas under pressure and microphones is even harder. If you give him a receiver who understands timing and routes, you speed up the process. It does not fix everything, but it helps a lot. Let us be clear, the current receiver group does not scare anyone. There is a lack of separation and consistency on third down. Defenses squeeze everything because they do not respect the passing game. That hurts the run game too. Sarrett is not just a familiar face. His numbers stand out. He caught 15 touchdown passes this season. He also graded highly by Pro Football Focus. That is real production. That is someone who knows how to win in the red zone. And this team desperately needs someone who forces defenses to respect the pass. The beauty of the 36th pick is value. Impact players are still available there. If you hit, you raise the ceiling of the offense without spending another top pick. But there is one thing I will not ignore. If the offensive line remains weak, nothing moves. The front office has to be smart. You cannot draft a receiver and forget protection. You have to assemble the puzzle in the right order. That is why I like the message from John Spytek. He talks about discipline and daily work. It sounds simple, but that is the difference between serious teams and lost ones. Another point, a lot of people are obsessed with who the next head coach will be. That is fair, but the draft is where you lay bricks. Pairing a quarterback with a trusted target is a big brick. It gives direction. It gives the offense a shared language. I picture the crowd reacting. One group will say, fix the offensive line now. Another will say, get weapons for the quarterback. I want both. And I want this organization to stop playing with fire. Hold on to this thought, because the next story is not about draft fit anymore. It is about power and influence behind the scenes. Big names are shaping the next direction of the Raiders. There are moments when a team is so messy that the real question changes. Who is deciding what type of player is allowed into this locker room? Because this is not just about talent. It is about mindset. It is about character. That is where the conversation gets serious. Behind the scenes, the search for the next head coach and the overall roster direction runs through general manager John Spytek. But there is another weight at the table. Someone who is not there for photo opportunities. Someone there to point the way. That is where the name comes in, Tom Brady. He is a minority owner, but his influence this offseason is being treated as significant. And it makes sense. The Raiders are changing their coaching staff. They are reshaping the roster. Many players on short-term deals will not return. That is what happens after a season like 2025. It is painful, but sometimes necessary. What I like about this story is Brady's logic. He says everyone looks at prospects and gets stuck on things like he is fast, he is big, he can throw the ball 70 yards from his knees. And he responds with, okay, and what does that mean? When I heard that, I thought, finally someone talking like a human being. Speaking very clearly now, this is the kind of filter the Raiders have needed for years. Fans are tired of watching elite athletes arrive and disappear when pressure hits. Brady is looking at a different layer. He wants to know if a player is smart enough to absorb information, if he processes quickly, if he studies, if he learns from mistakes instead of repeating the same ones for 3 straight games. Then there is the emotional side, leadership, daily competitiveness, how a player reacts when he loses reps in practice, how he handles criticism, how he pushes through adversity without turning it into drama. That never shows up on highlights, but it shows up on Sundays. There is another layer that stands out to me. This standard fits the city. Las Vegas does not forgive. The media is intense. The fan base in silver and black demands accountability. If you bring in players chasing the spotlight, they melt. If you bring in players with toughness and hunger, they become pillars. Let us not romanticize this. Brady being the greatest quarterback ever does not guarantee success. There are risks. Egos exist everywhere in the NFL. I hope Brady and Spytek are fully aligned. When leadership pulls in different directions, players feel it immediately. Even so, I prefer this to the old autopilot approach. At least a standard is being put on the table. And if that standard becomes the rule, the draft and free agency change completely. That is where I start connecting all the dots from today. The rookie carrying the offense, the Crosby situation, the number 1 pick, the draft weapon idea, and now this filter of who deserves to wear the shield. Everything points to a bigger question about identity, and that question is what will hit this team next. I am going to be very clear. Either the Raiders get their identity right now, or we relive the same pain in a new uniform. Jeanty showed he can carry real weight. The Crosby situation shows the locker room does not accept mixed messages. The top of the draft can change everything. Pairing a quarterback with the right target can accelerate the offense. But none of this works if leadership does not have real backbone. And with Brady setting standards at the table, I want to see action, not speeches. Drop a comment because this space belongs to everyone who lives and breathes Raiders football.